A newly released memoir reveals much more than growing up in blue-collar Hartford in the 1950s. It's also a true crime book about the murder of a young girl. Girls of Tender Age is the title. It's been called both entertaining and troubling. The author, Tirone Smith, is here now, and that's an interesting review. Entertaining, troubling, but it does sort of cover all those facets.
It does. The first line of the book is, "This is how my father describes our socioeconomic class, working stiffs." And so we go on to those 50s kinds of things. My uncle working the colt assembly line, accidentally shooting himself in the arm, and we all made the paper, and he was all right, but we were all thrilled. So it's those kind of adventures of the 50s that are pretty much gone now.
Sort of a look at Hartford as small-town America.
Yes, it was small-town America because we were divided into ethnic neighborhoods, and in 1 square mile was your school, your church, the branch library, the 5 and 10, the drugstore, the tavern, and you never left your little area unless it was time to buy your Easter outfit and downtown and go to G. Fox.
And then you get into the heart of the book, the heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. A serial pedophile murdered your classmate, and you were how old?
I was 9. We were in the 5th grade together.
In the 5th grade.
Yeah, and it was a very safe, secure neighborhood. The doors were unlocked. You hopped on your bikes, out you went. You went trick-or-treating. No adults went with you. And then we had a field trip one day in the 5th grade, and the next morning we came to school, and Irene, our friend, wasn't there, and there were these rumors. Well, I think Irene was kidnapped, and we didn't know anything. And it was the 50s, and we weren't supposed to know anything. It was better for us that we knew nothing.
You talk about reading the newspaper and seeing the word rape in there, that she had been raped, and asking your father what that word means. No one talked about that sort of thing.
No, he told me to go to my room as soon as I asked the question. And then when I told me to come down again, dinner was ready, and you just soldiered on as if nothing had ever happened. But in the 5th grade classroom, all the teacher said was, "We will not speak of Irene."
And so it's interesting that you say that this young girl was really killed twice, once by the murderer, second by sort of the tight-lipped society of the 50s.
Of the 50s, yes, yes. You don't complain, you don't whine, you carry on, and you soldier through. Which means that wounds, there was no such thing as closure with this horrible tragedy. And when we've grown up, it's still affecting us. Decades later, people are all talking to me now about how they never could get over that. They learned to live with the wound rather than try to find a redemption in the goodness of this child. Though her life was so short-lived, she offered us all so much. She was just pleasurably innocent and sweet.
Now, something else you talked about, which people didn't talk much about, didn't even really know what it was back then, is growing up with a brother with autism at the time. That was another challenge for you.
This was another interesting note, because no one knew what autism was, and he was deemed retarded. And my mother went to the Boston Children's Hospital with him to say, how can he be retarded? He has books, 1,500 books. He was obsessed with World War II. And so this doctor never gave her a chance to speak. "This is something you have to accept." And she said, "Right now, out there, he's reading Arms in the Covenant by Mr. Winston Churchill. How can this be retarded?" So they just acted like she was the crazy person here. So we dealt with Tyler on our own. We made the best of it. I had a huge extended family. He was very lovable. We would sneak into bed at night, and he would tell me stories with his teddy bear, and so obsessed with World War II that he would keep cookies under the rug that were the rations, and if he liked a story I told, he'd give me a cookie and tell me, "Mind the antiquity, soldiers, as you leave my room."
Had to be very emotional for you to write this book.
It was very emotional. It was very wrenching to go back to the details of the murder. But I had to honor Irene. I had to show it a courageous act. She performed as she was about to be killed. He threatened her and said, "You are not to tell a soul about this." And she looked him in the eye and she said, "I'm going to tell my mother." And it was probably what allowed him, that he decided he had to kill her.
Well, I wish we had more time to talk about this book. We do want to let people know that you do have a couple of book signings coming up Wednesday, March 15th in Westport at the Westport Library, and then Monday, April 24th, so still plenty of time for that in Woodbridge at the Woodbridge Library. Tirone Smith, thanks so much for coming in and talking about your book.
Thank you
very much. Great meeting.